So you come to Nashville. Takes a little while, but you do get a career going. You're doing this full time, working with a lot of Christians. Do you run into opposition? I mean, are you confronting things? I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if you're a Christian in the secular music world in Nashville, you're going to run up against some things that you're going to have to make some tough decisions on. I mean, did you have situations like that, or what?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
I did. I will say though, like shockingly few.
Mm-hmm.
Like I expected it to be what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
There were instances where, there were words that I wouldn't say. I will also say, because I've already confessed that I'm not a perfect man, there were words that I would rather not have said that I ended up saying.
Mm-hmm.
But there were words that, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that. And so you either need to get somebody else or change the word. And a couple times, they just didn't have me sing on that place in the song.
Right.
Because I said, I'm sorry, I'm not singing that. And at first they would go, you're serious. And I was like, I'm serious. I'm not saying that. But again, I can count in 30 years, I can count probably on two hands, probably a hand and a little bit, the instances. So very, very few of those instances. There was one job that I went in that was, I will just say, it was a completely different faith. Like not a different branch of Christianity, a completely different faith. And I went in, showed up for this session, and the engineer, who was a close friend and a believer, I walked in and he turned around and looked up at me and said, I hope you're prayed up. And I was like, oh man, what am I about to get into? And then and they weren't ready for me yet, so I was just kind of standing back and listening. And as the lyrics were rolling through my head, I was going, oh man, I am in trouble. I am in trouble here. And thankfully the songwriter, it was a bunch of songs, I can't remember, but it was like a project for this other faith. And the songwriter was also, I counted, a good friend at that point. And it had kind of never come up. Like I knew what he was, he knew what I was, but we had kind of never gotten to that sort of tension. But it became clear to me that if what I was hearing was the totality of the project, that I was not going to be able to do it. And so I took him outside. I said, dude, can we talk a minute? And I went out, took him out in the hall, and I said, man, I don't think I can do this. And he kind of did the same thing. He was like, really? And I'm like, I don't think I can do this. And he said, I totally get it. Do me a favor. He said, we're about to leave. So the producer was about to leave and just leave it to me and the engineer to do all the background vocals. And he said, just promise me that you'll listen to every song. I can't remember. I think it was like 10 or 12 songs. He said, just listen to every song. If you'll promise me that you'll do that, he said, I'll honor your decision, whatever you decide. And what was the final kind of no check mark for me was that it was essentially going to be an evangelical tool for that faith. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just singing about this.
Right.
It was actually an arm of the church and they were going to use that as an evangelical tool to bring people in. And so as soon as I kind of figured that out, it was like, no way, I can't do it. And so I did what I promised, and me and the engineer listened to all the songs, and I was like my heart was just boom, 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 pounding, and I just knew, I can't do it.
Right.
So I walked away, and it ended that friendship for a couple of years. Like he was one of my regular guys. He said, I totally understand. But in reality, it was like, I didn't hear from him again for 2 or 3 years after that.
Well, there's a cost to pay sometimes for standing up on what we believe. I mean, you suffered there for a couple of years.
Yeah, but it wasn't bad. And I'll give you another example, which made me go, okay, like it was the right thing to do. I mean, I knew it was the right thing to do, but still it hurts.
Sure.
It's like, because 12 songs, you know, at a union wage that's a pretty good little chunk of change. But this other time, same thing, similar thing, although it wasn't a different faith. It was just a song demo. But it said something about people of faith in the song. And I'd worked for this songwriter for a long period of time. I worked for the producer for a long period of time. And I called the producer first and I said, dude, like, I can't sing this part of this song. I can't in good conscience say that. And he was also a believer, so he understood why. And I said, and I also had no illusions that this wasn't going to tick people off.
Right.
It was like there was a line where I was willing to offend and I was willing to bear the consequences, whatever that was. But in this instance, it's always like every single time it was exactly the same reaction. It was like, oh, like you're serious,
yeah.
And so we had that conversation. He said, "Don't do anything. Let me call the writer." The writer calls me like 30 minutes later. I see his number come up on my cell phone. I'm like, I'm fixing to get chewed, and so I'm fully expecting anger. Like, what do you mean you can?
Right.
How dare you? How you thrust your views on me and all that stuff? And he said, I want you to know, like, I appreciate that you were willing to say, this is a line I won't cross. We're going to change the lyric.
Wow.
I said, really? He was not a believer. And he said, my goal as a songwriter is to get things on the radio. And I know that if it offends you, it's going to offend at least part of the audience. And I don't want to do that. So they changed the lyric and I was able to sing the song.
Wow.
So yeah, I had a really good positive outcome at that time.
Well, all that to me just speaks to, again, your integrity and authenticity of being who you say you are, right? For Christians, there are going to be times when we live in a secular world, which we all do, where our faith is challenged on some particular thing, right? It's going to be different for me than it is for you, right? You're going to have a different line in the sand, a different scenario. But I think we all come up against those things. And so I think understanding what we believe and why we believe it and being willing to be authentic about who we are and then take the consequences, whether they're positive or negative. I think it does speak volumes. You know, and a lot of times I think the people that are not even directly involved, but the people who are standing around watching or on the periphery of a situation, it's a witness to them of, hey, yeah, Russell is actually who he says he is, or Scotty is, or whoever the person is.
I hope
right?
so. Part of this has just kind of come to my mind. I know as believers we're all supposed to be witnesses. We're all supposed to be able to share the gospel, but I won't say I don't think I have what the Bible calls the gift of evangelism. Mm-hmm. Those guys that, like one of the guys at my church, is just, he never goes in a restaurant, he never goes in a grocery store, he never goes into a gas station that he doesn't at least broach the subject, right, or hand them a track or whatever. That makes me a nervous wreck. And so I feel like my door to evangelism is what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that may be, for me, that may be one of the reasons that I'm so kind of hypersensitive and hyper focused on it, because again, in the music business where everybody's not believers, that just being authentic and being there has, again, given me so many doors and opportunities to talk to artists, like people who are influencing the culture, artists and producers who millions, if not billions of people listen to on a daily basis. I'm able to have a conversation with a really, really straightforward gospel kind of centered conversation where I feel like I would never have gotten that opportunity if they didn't trust that I was safe and that they could at least know that I was going to be honest with them and I was not just trying to, put another notch on my belt for, oh yeah, I won another one for the kingdom.
Right.
And it's like, no, I care about you.
Right.
And so I want to tell you the truth. I just feel like that's because I'm not, and kind of in your face evangelistic type. I need for God to kind of create those opportunities for me. I'm perfectly willing to go through that door if they open the door. Not ashamed. I have an answer to give you, but I'm shyer than I should be about trying to bang the door open.
Right.
If that's a thing.
Yeah, well, we just have different giftings. I mean, but we all need to be prepared to give a reason for the hope that's within us, right? But we definitely have different giftings.